Hi guys, welcome to lesson 1. In this lesson we're going to make the banging EDM festival track lead sound. We're going to make this together in Vital Synth. But before we do that, let's listen to the track we're going to make together. And don't forget that every single step is explained. We guide you through every single process and technique on how to make this track from start to finish. So we use this amazing free synth called Vital. Just Google Vital Synth and we highly suggest you install that so that you can follow along with this course. Click on the free version here. And if you're watching the first 4 lessons on YouTube, then I'll put a link below this video so you can get all the Vital presets, the samples and the MIDI that we use. And if you've bought the course, then you'll get the full set in the work files in the download zip. Okay, let's get started. As you can see, I'm working at 44.1 sample rate and 24-bit bit depth. We're going to set the tempo to 128. And let's just start, let's say bar 75. That way we've got plenty of space in front for all our intros and build up and everything. Because I like to start with the drop, the main section, the chorus. It's the most important part of the track. It's got the most energy. And if you don't get the drop right in this style of music, you might as well forget the rest of the track anyway. So let's start at bar 75. And we're going to be making the main lead in just a second. But I'm just going to quickly get some drums in there so we've got a timing reference. I prefer that to the metronome. So again, either go to the free samples underneath the video or in the download work files. And we're looking for kick 13. By the way, a lot of these samples, in fact most of them, have come from our very own sample packs, House Tools 1 and Club Tools 1. That's these 2 here on our website. You don't need to purchase these. In addition, we give you the samples that you need to make the track, but just wanted to let you know that they're here if you want them. House Tools 1, Club Tools 1. Okay, kick 13. You can either drag that in as audio or you can right click, use a sampler track. When I make my tracks, I tend to use a sampler track because you can then change your mind later on. It's quite easy to change your mind and just drop in another sample. So we'll carry on with that for now. So we'll just do quickly put in the 4 to the floor. Keep it nice and simple to start with. Turn down the volume. You always want to turn down the very first element in your track away from 0. It was on 0 before. It's up here, then you start adding in your 20, 40, 50 tracks. In addition to that, it's all going to start clipping. So if you turn the first one down, then you're good to go. So you turn it down to about -12 on the meters. Something like that is fine. You can turn down the pre-gain here if you wish. That way you don't have to bring down the fader, but I actually prefer to bring down the fader. I'm going to give that a slight boost at 50 Hertz. That's quite a common little trick. Just a slight boost to bring out the nice sort of sub of that kick. Fairly narrow EQ bands, only about 2 or 3 dB. Before and after. Just gives it a bit more punch. Going to bring in a typical EDM drop snare type rhythm as well. So that was kick 13 from Club Tools 1. I'm going to use snare 06 from Club Tools 1. Again, I'm going to just sample track that. We'll bring this down a little bit as well. We're going to do this funky rhythm that's quite common. Okay, so it's like that. And we'll have the first one slightly lower in volume to give that a bit of funk. We'll copy that over, so it'll be something like this. That's just to give us a basic rough rhythmic guide. That's all we're going to do with that for now. So let's get into the interesting part of this, and that is making a killer EDM festival lead. So I'm going to right click and add an instrument track. And we're going to load up Vital. We're going to be using Vital a lot, and it is a free synth, as I said. And it's just as good as something like Serum. Now I did find a really good lead in another synth, but I didn't want to use that other synth because it means you'd have to go out and buy it if you haven't got it already. So what I've done, I've attempted to remake it in Vital myself with a bit of sound design knowledge. So I was constantly referencing this other sound. So we'll just use the initial sawtooth patch to get the notes in. Let's turn it down. I'm just going to program in my lead. You may ask, how did you come up with the lead, rhythm and melody? Well, it's just a matter of playing around, really. I don't say, oh, this must be A minor or this must be C major. I literally play around on my keyboard until I find something that works. And it takes quite a number of attempts sometimes, but this is what I ended up with. Don't forget the MIDI is in the work files. If you don't want to program this in yourself, you can just drag in the MIDI. So it's a 4-bar loop, so let's just extend our kick and snare. Duplicate those across, and now let's start making the sound. So we're mainly going to be using saw waves, but we'll use the slightly different versions of saw waves in the Vital Synth. So we'll go for classic fade. If you've never seen Vital Synth before and you've got no idea how to use it, then Google Born to Produce Vital tutorials, and we've got quite a few on our website and YouTube channels. We're going to choose waveforms from the factory settings, so everyone has got access with the free version. Going to use classic fade, and we can adjust the wave position here and change the shape. So we'll have something like that. Going to increase the number of voices. This is vital for this kind of thick sound that we need, but we'll bring down the unison, or also known as the detune. And we'll leave the phase on random at the moment. Let's open up a second oscillator. And this took a lot of time, by the way. I went through many different types of waveforms, wavetables, and no end of effects and envelope shaping stuff and filters. And it took me ages to get it anywhere near the sound that I wanted. But we got there in the end. So although I'm just picking the right parameters all the time, it took me a long time. So saws for days is the next one. And again, we'll adjust the position. And this completely changes the sound, by the way. I think it was something around there. You've also got these knobs here, which we're not going to use at the moment, but they can change the sound quite a bit as well if you come and choose whether you want to change the formant, the sync, the quantize, the bend. And on this side, lots of harmonic stuff that you can stretch and smear and all sorts of stuff. Do use those in some other patches. But for this one, we're just trying to get a real mid-range, throaty, thick lead for the festival vibe. So again, increase the voices. We'll bring down the unison again. Back off the level a little bit on that. We want to make sure this goes to the same filter. We haven't turned it on yet, filter 1, filter 2, but it always defaults to filter 2, so just be wary of that. Third one, we'll have a classic fade again. Something like that. Turn down the level a little bit. We'll pan these off as well. So oscillator 1 is panned to the left, not all the way. Oscillator 3 is panned to the right. Again, let's thicken up the sounds. That one's going straight to the effects. That's fine, that's how I had it before. Let's click on the filter, switch it on, and we're going to go for a dirty filter in this one. Turn down the resonance a little bit. So let's start shaping the sounds dynamically with the envelope 1 is the dynamics, envelope 2 you can put onto the filter, where you can actually modulate any parameter onto something else, but I tend to do envelope 2 as the filter modulation. So let's just shorten off the sound a little bit. You get a slight click or something weird at the start, just bring up the attack a little bit. And that'll get rid of that. Let's shape this sound a little bit with envelope 2. Let's bring it right down and chuck it onto the filter cutoff on the filter. Once we've got some effects on here, it should be a little bit better. So we can affect the amount here as well of how much this envelope is affecting this cutoff. So this cutoff moves as per this envelope here. And you can add a bit of drive. Just sort of dirties it up a little bit, especially as we're using the dirty filter. And that's what we want. Maybe a touch more resonance. So that's okay for now. Let's get some effects going. And this will transform the sound. At the moment it's not very big and festival-like at all. But that's the basics of the sound. The compressor in Vital is extremely powerful. It's so powerful you may want to consider reducing the mix a little bit. But it can really change and transform your sound. I have it on multi-band mode, but you can change the mode to low, high or single. And you've got a downward compressor, which is probably what you're more used to, but you've got an upwards compressor as well. And you can drag the lines in the middle to have more ratio or less ratio. So I'm going to start shaping this sound. We don't want much low end in this sound. It's all about the mid-range for a festival lead. So you want to really compress the mid-range to get this kind of EDM lead sound. Let's get some other effects on here. We desperately need some reverb and stuff, but let's put my favourite one on, which is the soft clip, or sometimes I go hard clip. We definitely want a bit of distortion on this sound, so let's go hard clip. And that also brings out the dirty filter as well, which is great. Let's do a bit of EQ. We definitely don't want the low end in this. We're going to have a big drone bass going behind this, so we want to take out the bass on the lead. And we want to sort of bring down the very top and bring out the mid. Now once we've got some reverb on this might sound a bit more like a festival lead. Get in there. I think what I also did on this one is to give it a bit of help in the inserts, because the one that I was trying to reference sounded so compressed in the mid-range. I even added an extra compressor, so fire up a multi-band compressor, and I'm going to give it some extra help. So we're going to narrow this third band and just use something like between 4 and about 10. Really want the mid-range to pop out here. So you can see we're compressing this range quite a bit. Don't want to compress this range here that much. So we're back off the threshold on the lower mids, and the higher mids we've got -18, so which is being compressed quite a bit. We'll leave these at 2 to 1, it's probably about right. Bring up the attack a little bit to let through the transients. And we'll just increase the gain on this as well, on this band only. Always do before and after. And always match your outputs when you're bypassing, so you're not being swayed by the fact that it's louder and therefore better. Just giving it a bit more of an edge, a bit more energy in that 4 to 10k region. Let's just see how this sits now. So that is the basics of the patch. We've got some slightly different variations of saw waves, and we've thickened them all up. We even panned them as well. Thickened them up with not only having 3 of them, but also increasing the voices and the detune. Dirty filter being modulated by envelope 2. And then we've used the multi-band compressor, which I spent a lot longer on this, tweaking it. So you can really affect the sound. And the attack and release also affect the sound quite a bit. You could also give it some extra in the channel itself, channel EQ. Something like that. So let's load up the patch so we know we've definitely got the right sound, and obviously the patches are available to you in the work files as well, or below this video. So you can go to open external preset and just find where those presets are on your computer. After you've downloaded them, I'm just going to go to browse and find BTP Festival Lead 3. That's the one you want. And there's also another option for you here. We could actually chuck in the sample from the other synth into this sampler here. So we can blend a bit more of that in if you want. Completely optional. So in your work files, there should be something called EDM lead sample. And you can just drop it in there. And you have to pitch it down by -7, by the way, to get it to work for this particular scale. You have to press this button here, so it's playable over the keyboard. Otherwise, you just get the same pitch all the way across the keyboard. Let's just turn the other oscillators off for a second. That should be going to... You can either have that going through to the effects, or perhaps just direct out. But then you don't really get much of a level that way. Depends if you want these effects that we've just built in here to go to this sample or not. So let's just try and blend in that in, see if that helps. Try putting this to filter 1 just to see what happens. This is the classic fade oscillator 3. Seems to be a little bit fuller with those two going to filter 1 and this one going to the effects. So this is optional. You can blend this in if you want with the level control. Just adds a bit more thickness. And we've got this panned. Let's have this down the middle. Or maybe this one slightly to the left and this one slightly to the right. So we've got a bit of panning going on all 4 sources. Okay, let's just have one recap. And once we layer this up with a lower sound as well, and all the effects are in there, then that's going to sound even more epic. So that's the basics of our EDM festival track. I'll see you in the next lesson where we'll be making the drop bass, that big boomy drone bass. Cheers guys, bye bye.